Anne, it is so
Hello.
good to see you.
Good to see you too, sir.
We are back for another installment of Ask Eddie and Anne. Um, yeah, finished up the festival in Hollywood and getting ready to turn right around and do another one, where I will see you. Right, I will see you
Yes.
at the TCM Classic
Yes.
Film Festival.
You will. Yeah, I'm flying down on Tuesday and I already have like all these people I have to see, so it's already like really crazy, but I'm very excited this year. I'm just super pumped for the Powell and Pressburger documentary. That is the thing that I am just really super excited about.
I know I probably won't be able to see it. I will probably not see anything in the
Yeah,
entire
yeah.
4 day festival. uh, because I'm just doing too much, running around doing things. But it'll be fun. I'm excited about the stuff I do get to present, and which includes the 50th anniversary screening of Chinatown,
I
which
was
I am.
hoping.
Yeah, I'm excited to do that. I'm going to do that with Carl Franklin, my buddy Carl Franklin, the director, who's a huge fan of that film, and of course did one of his own, The Devil in a Blue Dress, or Devil in a Blue Dress. And yeah, and I know, I think, were you not asking me for, like, could you get a list of the films that I'm introducing so it could be, I don't know why they never announce that stuff. There's some kind of unwritten rule about that. I'm not sure what it is. Like, guests who are brought in to present a film can be listed, but the actual on staff TCM hosts are never listed.
I don't understand why they do that. Because
I
anyway,
don't
so
know.
make sure you send me your list of things because so people know, well, this will be air after we get back from CCM, but
Oh, so this won't help them at all. So
yeah.
why even discuss it then?
Yeah, yeah. So we
Uh,
can tease everybody with what a great festival they're missing.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but if people follow us on our social media accounts, I always post all the way through the festival. So even if you can't go, you can always go, like I said, if for something like this, where I go to the festival, then I always cover it pretty
right.
extensively on online. And we put that in the newsletter. So hopefully some of the people who didn't want to go
Well,
could still get some pleasure from it.
I can tell you this, that before the festival begins, I will be recording an interview with Carl Franklin for TV, for TCM, where we will present One False Move and Devil in a Blue Dress back to back one night. See, this is how TCM finally comes around, because that's a double bill that I presented at Noir City, Chicago several years ago with Carl, and we did a
Mhm.
interview between the films. But that will now be a freshly recorded uh, evening on TCM that we'll do before the festival starts. Even we'll have recorded that, so that's kind of fun. Last year I got to do that with Sherry Belafonte and with Anne Margaret, and it's nice when they make use of the festival to record stuff for the linear version, as they call it, of TCM. Uh, and I'm interviewing some. I don't have a ton of interviews necessarily, but I will be talking to David Fincher uh, with the premiere of the restoration of Seven at
Hmm.
the Chinese Theater. So we'll have a talk before that film. So that'll be kind of fun. And I know I'm also introducing uh, White Heat on opening night. I won't get to go to the Pulp Fiction thing because it's opposite the screening of White Heat. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to get into this because it's all moot, because this is airing after the festival anyway. So that's it. I'm excited though, because before I leave, I have to finish the manuscript for the new version of Dark City Dames, and I'm almost done. I have like 6 or 7 pages to go, and I will be able to send that off and and then enjoy the fun of just doing photo research and stuff like that. And the book will eventually come out in 2025. And I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised if next year's Noir City Film Festivals coincidentally involve uh, films starring the women in that book. So
That would be very cool.
yeah. So I'm say something again, Anne,
Oh, so
because
have you
I'm
seen?
hearing you very faintly in my earpiece. So
Okay.
I'm wondering why that
Hope,
is.
well,
I can hear you though.
hopefully. Okay. Let's make sure that I am mic'd to my headset. Then I'm going to check my settings here.
I mean, I can hear you, but I have my volume all the way up for you.
Okay.
So I'm just want to make sure you're recording at the same level I am.
Headset microphone. Yeah, we should be good because I'm using my headset microphone. So we
Okay.
should
I
be
mean, I can hear you.
so we should
We'll
good.
just that's what the difference is because you're at a different mic this time. That's why it sounds so different. Okay. But I'm sure it's recording okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
because
right.
that's why I'm
So
using this and not the built-in mic because you guys wouldn't be able to hear a thing.
got it. Okay, so I'm usually, you were able to get the questions over to me a bit in advance, and I sometimes am able to scan them. I'm regret to say that because I've been working so hard to finish this manuscript, I haven't even glanced at these questions. So this will be pretty amusing to see if I can come up with any decent commentary, given that I've had absolutely zero time to think about it. So
Okay, we'll see. First of all, though, I wanted to ask, you probably haven't, but have you been able to watch any of Ripley on Netflix?
no, I was in LA over the past weekend to introduce No Abras Nunca Esa Puerta at the UCLA Film and Television Archives Festival of Preservation, and I was staying with my friend Philippe, and the only thing I saw of it was what I saw when I walked in, and he was watching it, and I won't share Philippe's commentary on it,
Okay.
but I have yet to see it. Although I have several people who are raving about it, and several people who are less than enthused by it.
Yeah, I liked it very much, mainly because I feel like the character of Ripley is much more like he is in the books. There isn't any sort of romanticizing of him, and I like that very much because he's a freaking sociopath.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
And because they kind of aged up the characters to be in their 30s, and I'm kind of hoping they'll do more of the stories. Frankly, I would really like to see this actor playing. I would love just for the other books to be adapted, especially like The Boy Who Followed Ripley, which I think is a really great book, and there's never been a adaptation of that, and that's one I'd really like to see it adapted. Yeah, so that's all very cool. I liked it. Plus, it's Italy, so it's just beautiful, and the cinematography is gorgeous, and the art design is really cool. Um, so I mean, I really, really liked it. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I don't know. Things always split people, but to me, like I said, I liked it because I felt this was the closest to what he's like in the books. So I liked it for that reason. And then so now I'm going to reread the whole series again because I haven't read them
Good,
in a while, and
good.
they're
See, if
they're always
if
worth
if
going back
nothing
to.
else, that serves its purpose right there to get you back to Patricia Highsmith. That's good.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And I'm hoping other people that will happen with other people, and hopefully they'll read beyond the first book because the whole
yeah,
series is great.
yeah. Those
So
books are fantastic, and
yeah.
you've heard me say on this show, whatever this is, what we do, that any list of the great crime and mystery writers of the 20th century has to have Patricia Highsmith, particularly as a noir writer. She was
Hmm.
much more of a noir writer than Raymond Chandler, or and she needs to be recognized for that, for her, how prolific she was and how genuinely noir so many of her stories were. So if it's funny, if I was I grew up appreciating all of the writers that everybody else admired as well. Hammett and Chandler and James M. Cain and Cornell Woolrich, and then later on, David Goodis and Charles Willeford and all those guys. But all these years on, I would now say that any list of the great crime writers of the 20th century has to pretty much be topped by Georges Simenon, and Patricia Highsmith must be on that list. And then you can argue about everybody else after that, but those two to me are like the absolute can't miss writers. So
Well, yeah, and Agatha Christie. And I think the thing that I like about Agatha Christie that she has in common with Patricia Highsmith is they understand sociopathic behavior, and neither of them romanticize it. And I really like that about both of those writers.
right,
you know,
and I will confess, Anne, as you've pointed out several times before, Agatha Christie is much more than a writer of whodunits and stuff, and much tougher than that. But I think that historically she's been relegated into that niche because that was considered to be where women belonged. And so she was always, even though she was, arguably the best-selling, right? Is she the best-selling
she is
mystery author of the 20th century? She was still kind of ghettoized by the people who treated, they never treated her as literature the way they eventually came around and treated Hammett and Chandler and Cain and those guys as hard-boiled literature. But they never did anything like that with Agatha Christie. She kind of became more synonymous in some ways with Miss Marple than Poirot, and that was made her easier to relegate to the sidelines.
which is funny because if you actually read the Miss Marple novels, Miss Marple's friggin' ruthless. She is a ruthless woman. you know. And so like again, I just feel like Chrissy kind of reminds me of Dickens. I hear people talk about Dickens or her, and it's like, have you ever actually read
Read the
any of
books,
these
yeah.
stories? Because I do not know where you're getting this impression that they're cozy or
Well, this is what happens
stuff.
though when movies adapt them and they siphon out the hard stuff, to make them more palatable to a larger audience. Then that's where people's impressions are built out of the movies rather than the books, right? So interesting. So all of that is to say, I haven't watched the Ripley show yet.
Yeah.
I was too busy fussing angrily over trying to watch this new thing that everybody was recommending to me, the Colin Farrell series on Apple TV, Sugar. Have you heard
I've
about this?
I have heard about it. I have not watched it because I don't have Apple TV.
Yeah, well, I do have Apple TV, yet every time I try to watch it, it tells me this video is unavailable. Try again later. And I just discovered today, and this went on, the show while we're recording, the show has been on for 5 or 6 days, and I've tried every day to watch it, and I get this every time. Yet I can watch it on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I have no idea what's going on. My brother tells me today that it's an issue with Apple that's been going on since November, with people who have a Roku system are not getting shows streamed from Apple TV through Roku. It's not working right, and Apple is kind of denying that this problem exists. So it's very frustrating. But I finally watched, like 40 minutes of the first episode on my phone, which I despise.
Oh, you can just cast from your phone
I
to your Roku.
I tried.
Oh
I
no.
tried. Let's not talk about
Okay, this is too much.
my ineptness with technology and stuff. I really tried to do that, and all I'll say on this subject, and then we'll move on to the questions, is all of this just convinces me more than ever not to trust streaming services, because there's so many trapdoors and pitfalls in there, and then they just, and I'm so afraid that people will be like me, that they just kind of, geez, okay, I'll watch something else and come back to this later, and then you never do, and then you realize you're spending between 9.99 and 15.99 a month on all these different services where you used to get it all for one price. And yet they sold this whole concept as this is going to be beneficial to the consumer. And
Hmm.
it's absurd how much money is spent on streaming services that are totally unreliable. Anyway, that's it. I better stop talking now since I work for big streaming services.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say I've never had any problems with Shudder, so if you're into horror, I really recommend that
Well,
because
they know
they're
better. They
great.
know better than to tick off the horror fans. They'll get their pitchforks and torches and go after them. So,
Yeah, because for a while I switched to AMC Plus, which Shudder is umbrellaed under, and I had to use the AMC Plus, what do you call it? Dashboard essentially on Roku, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it
yeah.
sucked compared to Shudder. I couldn't wait till that expired. I could go back just to Shudder because the Shudder's
Well, this
interface
is
is so much
exactly,
better than
and this is the thing now.
AMC's.
The
And they're
entire
own, they're owned by AMC, but Shudder's format is way better. That's like one of the, and it's just the easiest to get through. And they don't play sound, so you can like flip through stuff without having like
oh
sound
yeah,
going, which
yeah,
I
yeah.
hate about Netflix and stuff. And yeah,
Yes, yes, and forcing the coming attractions and the algorithms and everything in your face, and it can be a little maddening, definitely.
mm.
And I know you're excited because I saw yesterday the first coming attraction for Maxine, right? And I know you're a big fan of Ty West and Mia
Yeah,
Goth, and so that actually it looked very different than I thought it was going to be. I
yeah,
was surprised when I saw the coming attraction. But it looks great. I mean, I will definitely see that immediately.
yeah. Because Ty West definitely his style changes from film to film, kind of depending what he's kind of pulling from. And obviously, this one's set in the '80s. He's pulling from giallo and '80s slasher and stuff like that. So that's kind of one of the things I do like about him is each film is stylistically very different
Right.
and sort of dealing with that. So I think it'll be good. Yeah, and I'm not going to watch any. I watched one preview and that's it. I'm not going to watch
Yeah.
any more because I
It
know
is.
I'm seeing it.
Isn't it kind of interesting how so much of what's being produced now are like pastiche versions of all this stuff that we know very well from the past? Uh, I'm not going to say that Ripley is a pastiche, but it has been done twice before. And I only had to watch 30 minutes of this sugar thing to see where that was going. Is at least to me, it's fairly obvious that it's going to be a genre mashup that starts out as a private eye thing and ends up something entirely different. And I don't know. People keep talking about the big reveal in the show, and after like barely 40 minutes of it, I think I already know where that is going, and
Well,
it's going to
yeah.
end up being more science fiction than hard boiled detective show.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
kind of the most original thing I've seen so far this year, um, actually Immaculate was, which surprised me. I thought it was going to go in one direction and it totally went into another one. But I don't know, you might have seen me post about it, but Late Night with the Devil is amazing. I've seen it twice at the theater. It's incredible, and it's a original Shutter. Shutter did it with a couple other partners. And it was so funny because the first week it was out, they only had 9 o'clock shows. And I was like, that's crazy because this thing's going to be really good. And it did like $2 million on 1,000 screens the first 3 days. So then the next week it got expanded to more
yeah.
show times and even flew over to this week. But it's just anchored by an amazing lead performance. But it is sort of like it's very creative because it's based around a 1970s talk show, and you're seeing this like kind of lot this episode that was groundbreaking, but sort of wrapped. It's kind of hard to explain, but
Well,
it's
you
amazing.
don't because I really really want to see it. I've heard nothing but great things about it, but it's nowhere near me, and I want to see it in the movie theater. So
Yeah, and
I'm gonna have to
definitely don't
hunt that
watch
down.
previews, don't read reviews, just go in as
Yeah.
blind as you can because it's worth it. And like I said, I just think the lead performance is really like an
I'm just
amazing
debating whether or
performance.
not I should take Kathleen with me to see it because she doesn't really go for horror movies. So I'm kind of teasing her by saying it's a comedy, and I'm afraid she'll hate me by the time it's over.
There is one sequence that has some really impressive practical effects, and I'll just leave it at that. So
Okay.
it might be a little much for someone who's not into horror, but
Yeah,
to me, it's
she
like
can always
almost
close
a
her eyes.
crossover. Because to me, it's really a crossover because the story and acting is so good that I feel like people who are not into horror can get a lot out of the film. Like I think it's definitely a crossover film, and I'm hoping that more people will see it that don't necessarily, go to horror.
Cool. Okay, maybe we should get to these
We could actually
questions
get to the questions
before we run out of time.
before they come knocking on the door and drag me back to my job.
Well, before Shutter comes knocking on, offering you a job as their chief spokesperson.
I'm telling you, I would do it gladly. Okay, this is from Peter. Although I have been able to attend any of the North City festivals this year because of work commitments, I've been checking the schedules. And after listening to your last Ask Eddie and Ann, I'm really happy to have pre-ordered the Flicker Alley release of Never Open That Door, which seems to include the other Woolrich adaptation listed as a conservation scan of If We Should Die Before I Wake. Anyway, now that Flicker Alley has already announced Never Open That Door, I wonder what has happened with the Argyle Secrets. Also, last week, a few of us were able to see another beautiful 35 millimeter of Le True. I think you showed a new restoration at Oakland, and I wondered why the American Cinematheque decided not to show it during their North City Hollywood.
We did.
No, okay. I thought you did too.
I
I
don't
was
know. I
confused
don't
by
know
that.
why Peter didn't see it on the schedule, but we did show Latrue in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Um, so that was just a misunderstanding there. The Argyle Secrets, yes, I know. We jumped over that in the release schedule because, quite honestly, I talked about it with Jeff Messino, who runs Flicker Alley, and we just felt that, quite honestly, the film was too short to release as just a standalone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only 60 something minutes, and Flicker Alley is because they do great packages with special features and everything. I still felt it seemed like people would be paying top dollar for a film that is essentially a 61-minute B film. So we agreed to withhold it until we had another film that we've restored that it would make sense to pair them, like we did when we released The Guilty and High Tide, both in the same disc. So essentially, it was a decision for the fans so that they weren't overspending for for just the one film. And we came close to having a backup companion film for it that we were going to restore, but some problems developed with part of that film missing, and we had what ends up happening is a lot of times when we do a restoration of a film that was eventually re-released, when we find original materials, they're often missing the credits, the titles and the credits, because they put the reissue information on it instead. And then sometimes you just find it without titles at all. Like remember when I showed Jealousy, that film at Noir City? It had no titles. The movie just
Oh
started
yeah,
because
yeah.
and that's an issue. So you keep searching around. You don't want to restore a film and not give the filmmakers the right credit. But I have to tell you, to either restore or create entirely new titles exactly like the original ones is really expensive. So it doesn't get done too quickly. Let's put it that way. But the Argyle Secrets will eventually come out. Don't worry. Don't fret, Peter. It will come out. Okay. Robert wants to know if I would ever consider Fritz Lang's Ministry of Fear for Noir Alley. TCM, he said, used to run it all the time, but hasn't for several years. I understand that with all the streaming services Today, sometimes copyright laws make it impossible to air every movie that TCM had in their vast film library. Again, I will reiterate that TCM has a library of films, but that doesn't mean they have the right to show them anytime they want. There's always terms for these licenses. Anyway, Robert would like to see it on Noir Alley, and I would love to show it. Um, anyway, he says, I'm too far from Detroit to attend this current convention. I don't know what that means. But please be assured that Philadelphia is loaded with noir fans as well. Okay, well, I hope I see you in Phoenixville, Robert, outside Philadelphia when we go there and do Noir City in November. But yes, I would be happy to show Ministry of Fear. And I've been doing Noir Alley long enough now that sometimes I mistakenly think I've shown a film when I haven't. And I separate from this question, about 6 months ago, somebody asked me something similar to this, and I said, well, I think Fritz Lang is now the filmmaker I've shown on Noir Alley. And I counted Ministry of Fear amongst the films that I had shown without realizing that I had not actually shown it. I do believe I showed it one time, but it was not on Noir Alley. It was when I was doing some other, like, Summer of Darkness thing or something or other. I think I showed it as part of a night of Graham Greene movies, because it is based on a novel by Graham Greene. And just like you were saying earlier about Ripley, the lead character in the Ministry of Fear is a much more difficult protagonist than the one Ray Milland plays in the movie version. He's just been released from a mental hospital for killing his wife, and it's a much darker and rougher story than the movie that eventually got made. But I hope we'll show it one time soon. I'll add it to the list. The entire schedule for 2024 is not filled in yet, so I'll put Ministry of Fear in the hopper and see if we can get that one for Noir Alley.
Okay, and this is from I'm not sure if it's pronounced my or me, M-I. Orson Welles' The Stranger came up on the most recent Ask Eddie, a film I love and placed at the top of Welles' oeuvre. But I need to know what happened to the Richard Long character, Noah Longstreet. Edward G. Robinson's character sends him to warn Loretta Young's Mary Longstreet and is never heard from again. I can only assume that Franz Kindler kills him, but there's no definite answer. I've read through several scripts, but alas, I have found no solace.
Well, I appreciate me or May or my that you think I would have an answer for this, but if you've read through several scripts and haven't found it, what makes you think I'm going to know the answer? I don't know the answer, nor have I ever come across anything in. I've read a fair amount about the production of The Stranger. Mostly from books on Orson Welles, and that has never been addressed. So I'm sorry to say I don't have an explanation for it. I will say the thing I always say about The Stranger. I think it's one of the, as much as I love Edward G. Robinson, one of the great missed casting opportunities of all time was giving the role of the Nazi hunter in that movie to Agnes Moorehead, who was Welles's first choice to play the part. And I just thought that was a stroke of utter genius. And, as good as Robinson is, and as correct as his casting is, since he was Jewish and it made perfect sense for him to be the Nazi hunter in this movie, it would have really been something to see a woman, not just any woman, but Agnes Moorehead play that role. That would have really been something.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, now Ed from Washington, D.C. Wonders if there are any scenes from film noir that are especially that we find especially memorable. He cites the chases, of course, through the sewers, and He Walked by Night in The Third Man, as well as the climax of White Heat, which I will have presented at the TCM Film Festival by the time this airs. Um, this is an interesting question. Do you? I don't really equate film noir with chase sequences. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things popped to mind. One, Fly By Night, because that's still has
Oh
one of the
yes,
best
yes,
car
yes.
stunts I've ever seen in a movie, and it's chasing. And then I was also thinking about oh,
That's a good one.
yeah, and sometimes it's more like with noir, the entire film tends to be the chase scene, right? Like the bridge that we showed, where it's kind of, they're hunting him down as he crosses, into Mexico to hide
Oh,
himself.
you
I mean,
across the bridge,
across
across the
the
bridge.
bridge. Sorry, across the bridge. That's just one big chase, right? From
Yeah, it's
he's being
well,
pursued all the way through.
most movies about fugitives on the lam or something are like one long chase scene. Well, Fly By Night, which you cited, it is one long chase scene because
Yeah.
Richard Carlson is mistakenly thought to be the killer of this guy in the very beginning of the movie, and very much like the 39 Steps, which is one long chase scene.
Hmm.
He goes on the run, and that's it. That's the entire movie, is him never stopping as the authorities try to hunt him down. So thanks, Anne. I'll choose that. Fly By Night is like my favorite chase in a movie. But as far as just the chases go, it seems to me they're generally more they're slower in noir because they're a lot of times they're like foot chases,
Yeah.
not car chases weren't that big a thing back then. I mean, there's that one in at the end of Side Street. There's
Hmm.
the car chase through Lower Manhattan. That's pretty good, but it's weird because it's desolate because they had to clear the streets. They weren't about to do a thing like that in 1949 where they were having to have, you know, pay all these extras and extra cars and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't going to happen. And I think of things like, oh my God, what's the fabulous, the pursuit scene in The Seventh Victim, where
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
um, I'm embarrassed. Gene Brooks is being, you know, through the streets by the shadowy figure. That's kind of a chase scene. You know, she's chased, but it's not. I know what he's referring to, um, and it's interesting because he cites two scenes where they are pursuit scenes where the protagonist is the villain and they're being pursued by the authorities, as opposed to where it's you know, not really. What would you call that? Like the scene in The Seventh Victim. That's not a pursuit scene. That's a stalking scene. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
those are different things and tend to be shot in slightly different ways. You know,
And it's kind of
because of who you want the audience to sympathize with. You know, I don't think anybody's sympathizing necessarily with Richard Basehart or Orson Welles in those films, but they are villains who deserve a big finish, you know, so they draw those scenes out.
yeah, and it's kind of interesting too, because a lot of times in film noir, people are wrongly accused of something and you're seeing them being hunted down. And that's kind of something I think that's very noir is that the person actually didn't do anything wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
and are still being hunted down by the police
Just
or,
like
or
North by
whatever.
Northwest, you know, it's a. I mean, Hitchcock really kind of pioneered the one long chase scene as the movie, right? 39 Steps, and then he modernized it in North by Northwest. But I don't know that those have actually been topped for, you know, a feature length chase. Anyway, that was a good question, Ed. I'm going to think about movies, you know, other movies that have for some reason, as I'm thinking about it in terms of noir, I'm seeing a lot of shots of our protagonists in the back seats of cars, like sliding around as the cars go around curves, you know. But I'll be damned if I can think of like a really, really great example of a chase scene, right? That was why nobody really even talked about them until Bullet, right?
Yeah.
Bullet was the first time that the chase scene was the anchor of the movie. Like it's the thing that everybody's going to talk about. And then after that, there were just all kinds of them, right? French Connection, the Seven Ups, To Live and Die in L.A. I mean, chase scenes became almost de rigueur in movies.
Yeah, my dad hated them. He thought they were really boring. He said they were just like in serials when they would have the stagecoach scenes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He said
exactly.
he thought they were incredibly boring and people needed to stop doing them.
Your dad was a plot guy, I take it. He
Yeah, and
liked
character.
plot and a character. Yeah, interesting. I don't need the action. Just give me the characters and the plot.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. Is this me now? Uh,
Yes,
okay.
five.
And this is from Adam, who says,
No,
I love
it's
it when
me.
they start this way. I need some help. Well, I can recommend a few. Are you talking about medical doctors or psychologists, Adam? He says he took the advice of Stan down at the cab depot and serenaded my wife with chocolates as he. I know what he's. I know what this is. Uh, yeah, Frank Phelan in 99 River Street. After that, when she least expected it, I whispered into her ear, and now we have two beautiful daughters. I ain't complaining, but it makes my time limited in watching my favorite noirs. So, my question, do you have any noirs you can suggest that aren't that long that will allow me to venture into the darkness while my girls are napping? Okay, someone's waking up. Okay, he actually wrote that in. That's very cute.
No.
So Adam wants to know about the shorter noirs that he can fit in between his daughter's crying fits. Well, I was going to say we mentioned Fly by Night, but that is not yet available in any kind of digital form. So, I mean, yeah, if you look, I wonder, can you search on like IMDb by running time?
I think you can, yeah.
Because I
And the great
would,
thing, yeah.
yeah,
And the great thing is, so many of the film noirs were B features, which means a lot of them were really short. It's actually, I think, more unusual for a film noir to be,
yeah,
longer because
absolutely.
most
I
of them
mean,
were
if a
short
film,
because they played
if
second on
a
the bill.
any and when a noir film is over 90 minutes, I'm always kind of surprised. And then if it tops 100, it's like, my God, I mean, things like the Asphalt Jungle and Sunset Boulevard and stuff like that are not 2 hours long, but they seem long compared to the other stuff. Uh, um, and I should know this off the top of my head because when we were doing Noir City 16 and
Hmm.
17, they were pairing A and B features, so all the B pictures were shorter in length, and so you know so dark the night editor, um just
I think all the Whistler movies, those were
all the
all the
Whistler
Whistler
movies, which are
movies.
now available in one DVD or Blu-ray package.
Yeah.
um yeah, if you just look for all those are going to be 80 minutes or less. If you're looking for shorter than that, Follow Me Quietly, that was made at RKO. That's only 61 minutes long. Detour, of course, is probably the most famous noir film that is 65 minutes long. That's it. So there's a lot of them, honestly. Um, um, the Spiritualist is not very long. I think it's 71 minutes or something like that.
That covers a lot of ground for being 71 minutes.
It does. It packs a lot of plot in there in a very, very short amount. It always amazes me how brilliantly constructed these movies are. And they're a wonderful tonic for people who are a little exhausted by binge watching new stuff that's streaming. It's like, really, it takes you 8 episodes to tell this story. I mean,
Well, that's the
you
main
know,
complaint about like films being over 2 hours, especially when they're like these stupid superhero films. It's like, a film, they could do this like in 70 minutes in a film noir, and the story would
yeah,
actually be more complicated than the one you're actually telling me.
yeah, absolutely,
My God,
absolutely.
can you not edit? I mean,
And
you
it is
start to,
interesting because
yeah,
in many of those newer films that went 2 hours and 20 minutes or something, honestly, the last 20 minutes are add-on because false climaxes became a very popular thing in movies. And I kind of have traced the false climax back to Carrie. Whenever Carrie was made, Brian,
yeah,
that to me was like the first movie that was famous for a false climax. You thought the movie was over, and then it's like, no, we still have another 5 minutes or so to go. And then there was the jolt, and then there was
yeah,
another jolt,
yeah.
and then that became like, catnip to filmmakers who were like, we're gonna make them think it's over, but it's really not. And then this kind of became the template, and it became very predictable to where, when the movie ends, it's like, yeah, but it's not really over.
Yeah, because I saw
There's
yeah, I went to see because I did a double feature. I went to the first Omen and I saw Late Night with the Devil again. And first Omen, it was like the ending of it was just like, first of all, it was too fucking sorry, it was too long in the first place, and then like they did a very pedantic connecting it to the actual first Omen film. And then like there was a second scene at the end kind of explaining what happened to some of the characters, and then another reference. It's like, okay, first of all, I got the first time, second of all, I didn't need it the first, but you could have cut off the last 10 minutes of that film. and
yeah,
and it was just too long overall. And like I said, I compared it to Immaculate because it kind of covers similar territory, but I thought Immaculate was okay. One, it was like an hour and a half, but I thought it was really superior. And they ended it right at the like, I loved where they ended it. It's like that's where you should. And it's like, and I felt that the storytelling was so much more economical. And it's like, I just don't like to, I mean, I don't mind a longer film if you have enough story to tell, but I like things to be tight. And I also like to make connections myself, right? Like, I don't like to have things spelled out. It's more fun to really not be sure of what's going on, or you're connecting the dots and I think that's something that film noir does really well. I
no,
mean,
I totally agree. It's also interesting when, because I'm going right back to what I said moments ago about why we didn't put out the Argyle Secrets. It's because I just felt like, for the money that you would be asking people to pay for this product, it's too short. And I have a funny feeling that a lot of producers in Hollywood now feel like somehow the length of a film, they see that as being, oh, you're getting more bang for your buck or more value. And it's like, not really, because longer is not better. You that's why I just loved, a horror movie. Get Out. Jordan Peele's Get Out was short, but who left that movie thinking they hadn't seen enough? Like, that was the whole movie. It was like, this was very well done. And I just, I really don't get that. And with streaming now, even things I like last time we talked about Capote versus the Swans, I still felt like it was 8 episodes or 7 or 8 episodes, and it was like, this could have been done in half the time. I just felt
yeah,
like after a while it was just repeating the same stuff over and over again. And what's interesting about that is the filmmakers come to just count on the performances being so good that you're not going to get tired of watching these people doing what they do. Like, how could I get tired of Diane Lane and Naomi Watts and, and Tom Hollander as Capote? They were great. But even as you're watching them going, damn, these guys are good, I'm also saying, but I've seen this scene 4 times already. I don't need it again. You know.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because like I'm a big fan of Mike Flanagan, and he's done several Netflix series, and like my favorite is Midnight Mass, which I
Yeah,
think
I
is
enjoyed that.
brilliant.
I enjoyed
You
that.
know, but that was also his shortest one. Like he only told the story in that, and his other stuff does feel kind of like it could have been more economical. And I really think that's part. Also, I was raised Catholic, so I think that was part of it too.
Yeah.
But I really thought Midnight Mass was like his best one, and part of it was he was so economical. Every scene in that series counted and moved the
It was
story
good.
forward and moved the
It was good.
characterizations forward. It was really tight.
It was also, dare I say, a very thinly veiled story about alcoholism. I mean,
Oh
that was,
yeah, yeah. I mean, all his stuff is about. I mean, everything he's done is about like addiction, trauma, and family
yeah,
relationships.
yeah, and the
Every
mix
single
of
thing.
Catholicism and vampirism
Yeah,
with alcoholism was pretty inspired. I have to say, it was pretty
yeah,
great.
yeah. And the reason why that whole thing with the drunk driving accident at the beginning, the reason why that was in there was when he was still drinking, that was his greatest fear. He was
Uh,
terrified that that would happen, that he would kill someone in a drunk driving accident when he was still drinking.
Interesting,
Oh,
interesting. Wow.
oh.
Um,
Okay,
okay, we better move on.
our friend
Um,
Martin from the Netherlands. Have you seen
yes.
any of the Lemmy Caution films with Eddie Constantine made in France in the late 50s and early 60s? If so, how do you rate them?
Uh, Pretty enjoyable. I wish I had seen more of them. My pal Bertrand Tavernier came to visit me one time, and he brought a whole bunch of them as a gift, but they weren't subtitled, and so I still have them all here, and I didn't want to. He hands them to me and says, "You're going to love these," and I'm looking through them and I'm like looking for where it says English subtitles, and I didn't say, Bertrand, these aren't going to work too well for me.
You should talk to Ted because Ted is extremely talented at finding subtitle files and putting them together with
Well,
stuff.
I have learned this recently. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to know that Ted is adept at that as well. If I may tell a quick story that I may not have shared with you in regards to the recent Noir City Festival in Oakland, we had a bit of a screw up in the file that we had for La Bête Humaine. Uh, didn't have subtitles. And we discovered this very, very late, like the day before the screening. And I take full responsibility for this. But my buddy Peter Conheim saved the day because Peter was able to find a version of the film. He did this twice. Found a version of the film in deep in the internet, you know, where a lot of stuff is uploaded illegally, and he was able to pull that and then separate the subtitle file from the film and put it over the version that we had so that we actually were able to show it. He did the exact same thing with Zero Focus, where I had gotten a high def copy of the film from Japan, but it had no English subtitles. And Peter very adroitly was able to download a copy of that film in standard definition off the internet, but then wrench out the subtitles and marry them to the high def version. So that now I think we actually have the only copy of Zero Focus that's high def with English subtitles.
And that is an excellent film. I'll say that again. That was one of my favorite films.
Yeah, I love that movie.
And for me, I guess the only Lemmy Caution film I've seen is Alphaville. and I saw it in college, right? Because colleges used to have cool film screenings. So I went over to see the thing was I was like really exhausted, and it was so weird because the scene where he's like being hypnotized, I was kind of falling asleep and waking up anyway because I was
You
really
were
tired.
being hypnotized.
Yeah, and it was really funny because it really added to the experience because I was kind of going through the same thing. So I was kind of coming in and out of that scene because that was kind of the point where I was just so exhausted that I was falling asleep. So I always kind of have that fond memory of Alphaville.
Alphaville was like the most impressive student film. I mean, that's the way I looked at it. I mean, it was
Uh,
like Jean-Luc Godard was making kind of a student film,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
then that's just what George Lucas did when he made THX 1138. It was like, he made it as a student film at USC, and then he remade it, as a that wasn't a major film, but he remade it as his first film when he got out of college. Uh, but yeah, I mean, Eddie Constantine wasn't he interesting? He was like Richard Conte's really beat up and ugly brother. That's always how he struck me.
There you go.
But a very, very intimidating actor on screen, definitely. So I would like to see more of those. So thanks, Martin. And maybe send me an address, and maybe I'll send you the unsubtitled ones, since you can probably make heads or tails out of them in the Netherlands. If I don't know if you speak French or not, but be happy to share some of those with you. Okay, Brian in Toronto was thinking about a movie he fondly remembered from the 1970s. Harry in Your I remember this. Well, I remember the movie. I can't remember seeing it with James Coburn. I suppose it supposedly got a lot right about the jargon and the way wire mobs used to operate, according to the Wikipedia entry. Do I consider it neo-noir? And what other great noir films have pickpocketing as a profession or a key plot device? I can't say it's a neo-noir because I haven't actually seen this movie. Have you seen the film, man?
No?
Harry in Your Pocket. Yeah, I remember when that came out. It was like when James Coburn was really kind of a big star,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I was it around the time he did Hard Times with Charles Bronson from Walter Hill. That was a really good film. Um, the greatest pickpocket noir of all time, of course, is Pickup on
Yeah,
South
but South
Street.
Street, yeah.
That pickpocket films kind of begin and end with that movie.
Yeah.
Uh, there's Robert Bresson's Pickpocket, um, but um, I can't think of any other. I can't think of any other noir films in which the pickpocket was the protagonist, other than Pickup on South Street. Otherwise, they're generally, bit characters who 9 times out of 10 are plying their trade when the protagonist cop busts them and uses them to inform on somebody to move the plot along, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, Harry, we're going to nail you. I know what do you got in your pocket there, because he's lifted some guy's wallet or something. And they force him to give out information in exchange for not busting him. So that's as far as I go with pickpockets in movies. But Brian, thank you for the reference to Harry in Your Pocket, because that is a film of that era that I have not seen, and we'll watch it if we can find it, and then figure out if it is a neo noir. Okay,
Forrest from San Antone. Who are today's directors who know how to produce noir?
interesting phrasing of the question. Directors who know how to produce noir. That's like asking, are there producers who know how to direct noir? Generally, no. But I I'm not being evasive here, Forrest. It's just a tricky question because you can parse this in many ways. Like today's directors, I presume you are not meaning contemporary directors, but active directors right now,
Yeah.
right? Who are making noir. Um, who do you think, Anne, like is like specializes in this? I mean, certainly there are directors like David Fincher who have made many films that I would consider noir, and I think that's where he's very comfortable. Stuff like Seven and Zodiac and the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and you know he does a lot of suspense stuff too. Panic Room and things like that. Uh, but like genuine noir, you'd think I'd have an easier time answering this question.
I mean, I don't think there's really anybody, frankly. I mean, well, Carl Franklin was like the last person I thought that really did noir, but
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
that's why
but
I'm
that's
that's why I'm
been
hesitating when he
decades
says. I
ago.
mean, Carl is obviously a working director
Yeah.
right now, but One False Move and Devil in a Blue Dress and things that are identifiably noir, where there's no two ways about it, were a while ago.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And
uh,
I think noir has just kind of moved to TV.
yeah, exactly.
Like Ripley is a good example of that, where that's, I think, in Better Call Saul, which we've talked extensively about. It just feels like that's where you're really seeing noir now is on these sort of I want to call them mini series, but that's not what they're called.
Limited series,
Series.
or but they're really not
Not
limited. I
limited. I
mean,
mean, yeah,
let's face it, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul is an
those are
epic.
TV shows.
It's an
Yeah.
epic TV show, an
Yeah.
epic TV series, and that's kind of funny because, like, that's what's interesting about this question is today's directors who know how to produce noir. Well, I would say to you, you know, Vince Gilligan, who created Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, is really the producer of those shows. He directed some of the episodes, but he clearly set out to make a modern noir story. That's what he was doing. So he produced it more than directed it. I'm trying to think of like who are some directors that I've talked to lately. Well, our modern noir masters that we've cited through the magazine, are not, I'll freely admit they're not specifically noir directors.
Yeah.
We cited Stephen Frears, but he really hasn't made a noir since The Grifters,
Yeah.
right? And um, John Dahl. John Dahl is somebody that I would say gravitates towards noir, but he directs television now. All kinds of television, not just noir. But The Last Seduction, uh, and I know he's made other films that are Red Rock West and Joyride and stuff like that. We're all very noir, but that's not exclusively what he does. Mike Hodges, who we cited as well, had made a lot of noir, but not recently, not
Mm-hmm.
anything recently. And even David Mamet, who we cited, uh, Spartan that he did with Val Kilmer was actually advertised as a film noir. Didn't help it at all at the box office. But, Mamet hasn't really done anything. He is very well versed in film noir. I should show you. David sends me, like every week after Noir Alley, he types out a little critique of that week's movie and
Oh,
sticks it in the mail and sends it to
that's
me.
so nice. How
It's
cool.
pretty amusing. He and he it's really wonderful because he analyzes the movie from his writer's perspective and says why it worked or why it didn't work,
Yeah.
right? So he wrote this beautiful one-page thing about where danger lives, explaining why it was so watchable, but why it, in the end, was a failure,
Yeah.
was because Mitchum just has no stake in anything that goes on in the movie. He's just concussed, and the audience can't really relate to him after a while. It's just like this guy's a jerk. Why couldn't he see how crazy this woman was all along? So that didn't work. But he went nuts about Mystery Street, claiming this is as perfect a noir film as I've ever seen. I think,
Wow.
so.
Yeah.
Um, if the writing holds together, David is going to approve of it. If the writing falls apart in any way, he is going to rip it apart. Okay,
Yeah.
that was a wild discourse we got there from what should have been a simple question. Are you getting busted for doing this at work?
Just there. It's fine. No, just delivery came in. But people don't
Oh, okay.
know that this is not my home. So I am in fact recording this at 3 in the afternoon at so I'm at my Myers Plus, the engineering firm that I work at, because Thursdays there's like only two other people
Okay.
in
Where
the
you must
office
have
right
where
now.
you must have tremendous job security, given that you named the company while you're basically doing something else on the clock. That was
Yeah, this is, I make the time up and I get my job done. So
okay. I understand that. Yeah.
yeah,
As
it's
somebody
it's
who has
fine.
worked from home since 1986, I understand about, you know, it's not a necessity to be in an office as long as you get the work done.
Yeah, and so yeah, and for me too, it's like great because especially if like Fridays are like my best day because like no one's ever in the office except sometimes Mike, and if he's on vacation, then it's just me, and that's just my hammer time because there's just no distractions for me, and it's just like that's probably my most productive day. And I tend to stay a little late sometimes on Friday, and it's just it feels good because like I can actually get things wrapped up on
Right.
Fridays.
Right. Very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh, it's
We
yeah.
knew, Anne, look, have no fear, Michael. It's an episode of Ask Eddie and Ann. You thought it was going to be an episode without a question from Michael in Post Falls, Idaho, but in fact, there is a question, and I think it's up to you, Ann, to read the question.
Okay, my wife and I watched a movie last night which featured a scene with a couple inside a theater. When the two leave, the marquee clearly shows the theater is the Redford, Detroit. I said, that's where Eddie is tonight, introducing North City. What a beautiful old venue. The movie It Follows, one of the best horror films I've seen, good enough to be in my top 10. Since Anne is a horror fan, I would love to hear her take on the film. I realize this probably won't be answered for some time, but maybe it will interest viewers to seek out North City, Detroit next year or this year when
So
we're reading the
this
question.
question was submitted a while ago because
It
if I
was
was there that night, that was September
that was September of last
September
year.
of 2023, and it's now April of 2024.
So
So
that's where people sometimes ask where in the questions are we? We're in the September 2023 questions. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Um, okay. This is going, I have not seen It Follows.
really, I'm
Mm-hmm.
stunned.
I
I
know.
have, I
See,
have seen it.
yeah, yeah. So you're the one to speak on it
Well,
because I actually haven't seen the film.
I'm just gonna confess that I didn't watch it under the best circumstances. It was really late and I was very sleepy, and I will confess to dozing off a couple of times during the film. So I'm not gonna say what I thought of it because I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt and say, um, and I'm not gonna blame the film for putting me to sleep. It seemed kind of creative and clever, but then, and this is the guy who went on to make Under the Silver Lake, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I enjoyed, even though again I it's kind of hard for me sometimes to believe how filmmakers can swipe so blatantly from other filmmakers and get away with it, because I thought Under the Silver Lake was such a bald ripoff of Mulholland Drive that it was like, wow, I like, how do you even do that? Are people's attention spans so short that you can steal from a film that's only like 15 years old and nobody realizes it? I had somebody once ask me to read a screenplay, and it was Chinatown.
Yeah.
It was Chinatown, and I was like, do you think that you can actually get away with this? It's kind of amazing. Anyway,
Yeah. So I've never seen it. It's so funny because I don't know. I've just never been really interested in seeing it, and people really rave about it. Like all these people that I follow on YouTube that do horror content, everyone says what a great film is, but just the whole premise, just I don't know. I mean, I have to be. This is kind of a weird thing, maybe to say, but I'm also just really uncomfortable watching stuff with teenagers having sex. Like it makes me really uncomfortable. Like I know people like rave about like Euphoria and stuff, and it's just like I don't want to watch it because I just even though the character, I mean, I know that the actors typically are not actually in their teens, but it's just like I don't know. It's just not something that I I don't know. It's just kind of off-putting
It's
to me.
interesting, given how many horror movies are based on that premise. I mean, I guess Halloween started that. It was like dead teenager, you know, dead teenagers in their underwear, genre of film. And also weirdly, there's some kind of weird puritanical strain in there because if they have sex, they're going to get killed. I
Which,
mean,
by the way,
it's
was
as simple
not.
as that.
It, and I would like to point out that while that was true of the slasher films later, that was not the intent of Deborah Hill and John Carpenter, which they have talked about extensively. That was not the message of Halloween.
Well, generally that's what
but
happens is that
but that
there's
was
a well
what
that's why
happened later with
that's why
imitations.
I always say to people, you can't hate Quentin Tarantino for inspiring a whole generation of imitators of Quentin Tarantino. I
Yeah,
mean, he was just doing what made him happy, and
yeah,
everybody else decided to swipe his style and his language and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I remember seeing Halloween when it came out, but then there was Friday the 13th,
hmm
right? And then it just escalated from there, Scream and I Saw What You Did and, everything else, Nightmare on Elm Street, all this stuff that were teenagers getting killed specifically after having sex. It just reduced the whole exploitive nature of the genre to its basic form. It's like, have them take their clothes off and then we'll kill them.
yeah, yeah,
It's,
exactly.
it's
And
pretty simple.
but then it's really interesting because one of the most popular over time, it's kind of interesting how these things shake out because a lot of people's favorite Friday the 13th movie now is Six, and there's no nudity in Six.
How about that?
Yeah.
Or what's the one I'm thinking of? The really surprising one. Um, oh, why am I drawing a blank? That was made by a woman. It was like one of the first and most egregious examples, and it was actually made by a feminist.
Oh, what
Uh,
Slumber Party Massacre?
Slumber Party Massacre.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was it. Yeah, where it was obviously very self-aware.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
killer with the huge drill and the whole thing, and it was like we're just gonna show you exactly what this is all about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think my favorite thing in that movie is the oh God, it's so hilarious. The pizza delivery guy gets killed, and one of the women is eating the pizza off the Jenga, and someone says something to her, and she's like, "I get hungry when I'm afraid," and that scene has always stayed with
There you
me.
go.
Just her
There you
delivery
go.
was dead on. It was just so funny. And yeah, I need to watch that again. I haven't seen it in years, and it's funny you brought that up because I was thinking about that the other day. I think it's up on Shutter now, actually, and I kind of want
There
to
you
watch it
go.
again. But yeah, and that was like you said, that was directed by and written by a feminist, and so it's sort of self-satisfied. But the scary parts of that really work as scary parts, though. So it's a
Rita Mae Brown. That's
Rita Mae
who. That's
Brown.
who wrote Rita Mae Brown. I
Yeah.
was I was drawing a total blank. Pardon me, Rita, but I was drew a total blank on that one. But there we go. Thank you, IMDb, for leading me back there. Okay, and now we have. Are we done with that question?
Horror film I've seen top 10. Yes, I basically said I hadn't seen it, and you had, and you didn't want to express your opinion because you had fallen asleep.
Yeah, I feel bad about that. Now I'm
Yeah.
trying. I've. You're gonna have to read the last question because I've
Okay,
screwed
no
up my
problem.
screen and I can't get back to the list of questions.
Okay, so this is Joe from Suffolk County, New York. Just suppose you've been Ubering around Dark City. How would you rate
I take
these?
Lyft. I don't do Uber. I take Lyft.
I take Lyft as well. Or Flywheel. How would you rate these Uber drivers? Patty Mitchell, Ann Rutherford from 2 O'Clock Courage, Perky Loyal, and a ride named Harry. I would give her like 5 stars.
Yeah.
I think she's the greatest cabbie in Noir. Like if I was in the position, if I was having to investigate things, I would want her to be my cabbie.
There you go. And
Absolutely.
she obviously doesn't care about making a living because she drops everything to help George Sanders or Tom Conway. I'm sorry. I
Tom
actually
Conway.
made that mistake. She
Yeah.
drops everything to help Tom Conway regain his memory and figure out the mystery of, yeah, she's pretty great.
Yeah.
Okay. So we agree. 5 stars for her. She gets a 5-star rating.
Yeah.
Good driver, friendly, able to solve mysteries.
Sam,
Clean cab, except for the
yeah, that was
bloodstains.
spotless, and she looked adorable in that hat. Sam from Tom Dan Andrea from Dark Passage, free medical advice and a story about 2 goldfish.
Yeah, yeah, he's pretty good. Uh, yeah, I mean, what can I say? But he should have maybe steered Vincent Parry away from that plastic surgeon. But if you do want to know how to find a plastic surgeon in the middle of the night who's still open for business, I guess Tom DeAndrea is the guy to ask.
Yeah, I give him 4 just because his personality was a little
Yeah,
weird.
yeah, that's got to count for something. So yeah, 4 stars.
Okay.
For yeah.
Okay. So the taxi driver, Joey Barlow from The Big Sleep. Tail jobs a speciality, flirting a possibility.
Uh, maybe the cutest of the bunch. Definitely, from my perspective, possibly the cutest of the bunch. But I have no idea about her driving capabilities or any of that stuff. Yeah, easy on the question, but I'll give her 3 stars. Just for the hell of it.
Okay. 3 stars sound good to me. PD, Wallace Scott from Out of the Past. The casual intimacy of a
Yeah,
shared cigarette.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. What's Mitchum's line in that scene? Yeah. Uh, Something about I just can't see the frame or something. I'm in the frame, I just can't see the picture or whatever it was. Um, Again, it seems like that guy doesn't really do much. He's just sitting in the cab waiting. Not very industrious or entrepreneurial. That guy. I'm going to give PD 2 stars. I don't know. I don't get a good vibe out of him. But I'm going to give 5 stars to one that's missing, which is Jane Randolph in Jealousy, who, like Ann Rutherford, it's like they worked for the same cab company in L.A. And she is, although she commits the cardinal sin of driving the guy home. Do you remember this? She drives the rich doctor home and accepts his invitation to go into the house, which is bad, loses stars. But then he invites her in because she claims to like classical music, and he plays his favorite Brahms piece or something and misidentifies it. And she has the stones to say, "You're wrong. It's actually the third or something." And like she actually did that, which was like hugely ahead of its time to have a female cabbie, and b a female cabbie who would enter a man's affair's house and then tell him he doesn't know classical music because he's misidentifying the piece that's being played. You got to give her 6 stars for that. I mean, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
And
because it's a
she ends
class
up,
thing too.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And she ends up embroiled in that big murder mystery and everything. And then, and I'm not going to spoil the movie for people who haven't seen it, but man, would I love to restore that film at some point.
Yeah.
It's so unusual and so strange. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say it's great, but It's so strange and so unusual. And Karen Morley is terrific in it. One of the few, uh, substantial roles that she got in the 40s because of her blacklisting. And I mean, Karen Morley was on the outs in Hollywood before the witch hunt even happened, because she was such an adamant workers' rights person, and she was the one responsible for the crackdown in Hollywood on you know violation of child labor laws and actors being forced to work you know all hours of the night without any extra pay or anything. She was a big a charter founder of the Screen Actors Guild, and you see where that got her.
I was gonna say, I
No
bet they,
work, no
yeah,
work in the 1940s.
I bet as soon as they could.
But all the lefties who made Jealousy, and there were,
No.
Trumbo wrote the screenplay, and it was Gustav Mahedy, who was the guy, the Czech who made Ecstasy with Hedy Lamarr. He directed that film when he came to Hollywood, and it was really, really interesting. Anyway, that was
Ah,
I'm trying to remember what her name was in the film. I'm Janet, I think. Janet something, and she was married to a bitter expat writer, a European emigre in the film, which is it's one of the most interesting things about that movie. Is it's one of the few films of that era to show that whole expatriate community in Hollywood of these Europeans who were all intellectuals who came to Hollywood and had to struggle to get work because they thought all of it was beneath them. And Nils Astor plays her husband in the film, who is one of those guys. Very interesting movie. Anyway, that was a good question. I like that.
yeah, I liked it too. It's always nice to have a fun one for the last one.
And of course, how can we forget John Payne in 99 River Street?
Oh,
There's a
Jesus.
there's a
Yeah.
cab driver for you
Oh
who,
my God. 5
yeah.
stars because he was hot.
uh, yeah, I mean he's pretty great in that movie. So, and again, I can't believe I can't remember his name. And how could we forget? Because that was a question earlier in the show. Was the guy talking about Frank Phelan, who tells him, you buy her some nice chocolates and you whisper in her ear, and the next thing you know, Frank Phelan plays his dispatcher in 99
Oh, that's
River
right.
Street.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, but that's a great cab driver movie. So
Yeah, it
okay,
is.
there you go. We got 6 of them out of that question. That was good.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So this is airing the week after TCM, just so people know where we are, so we know where we are. So hopefully we'll have another one in another 2 weeks. How is your schedule slowing down at all
It will
after TCM?
after TCM. It will,
Okay.
but then it picks right back up. I mean, I've got stuff coming up. Never mind. I
Yeah.
don't have to say it now because we'll have another shot after later this month.
Yeah, and just to remind people, our next festival is going to be North City, Boston.
North, which is June 14th to the 16th, and I'll have more next time, more information on the Noir City in Paris, um, which I'm a little nervous about because it's not a huge theater.
Yeah.
And I get nervous that I'm going to talk about it and people are going to say, "Oh, we have to go," and I'm like, I don't want people to travel all the way to Paris and not get in.
And yet they will be in Paris.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the upside. If you don't get in, guess what? You're in Paris.
It was so funny. So Sean Axmaker, who writes for North City Magazine, is staying with me currently because it's the week of the San Francisco Silent Film Festival. And so I told him that not this fall, but the next fall, I want to go over to Copenhagen for a couple days. And it was so funny because he asked me, "What's in Denmark?" I was like, "Denmark? I just want to go because I've seen so many Danish films that I'm really interested in going over there." But I thought that was so funny. What's in Denmark?
What's in Denmark? Yeah, that's That's pretty funny.
Danishman. So
Yeah, there you
anyway, yeah,
go.
there you go.
Mads is in Denmark,
Uh,
maybe.
maybe. Well, or Mallorca, they go back and forth. No, I mean Nikolai Lacoste is the one that makes me, frankly.
Okay, and
He's on my phone because Sean asked, "Who's that guy on your phone?" Nikolai Lacoste.
there you go.
So,
Well, give Sean my regards. We have a new issue of the magazine. Sean has stuff in it. It
cool.
is coming out very soon. We're proofing the issue right now, and it will be available before the end of the month. So
And how do people get the magazine, Eddie?
they sign up for the Film Noir Foundation mailing list by going to filmnoirfoundation.org and sign up for the mailing list. And but that's not all you have. What you have to do after you accomplish that is then you have to donate $20 or more to the foundation, which can be done really in the same place, but it's not a one touch thing. You have to sign up for the mailing list and then donate. And you, for $20 at least, you will receive the digital edition of the magazine, which is followed in short order by the print edition, which is once again available through Amazon until we find a better solution.
We've had some problems. Anyway, so yeah, so that's great. I think so. That's all we've got to promote. It's the magazine, North City, Boston. I think that'll do it.
That'll hold us for now. We'll have
That'll hold us for now.
more news to report when we reconvene in a couple of weeks.
And I look forward to seeing you in person next week, Eddie.
Yes, that will be
TCM.
great.
That'll be nice.
Yes, we'll figure that out. We'll make sure you just text me. We'll figure out some place where we can meet. Now I have to go right now because we just got a delivery at the front door. You're not going to believe what this is, but I'll leave you with this. I just got a wheelchair for Tizzy. So I'm gonna go assemble her wheels. Because I took her into the vet like a week ago. I know you're laughing, and it is kind of amusing, but Tizzy's 19 now, and she really is not walking that well anymore. She kind of, and I got tired of so cruelly having, our house is all hardwood floors.
Yeah.
She has a hard time getting any traction on it. So I bought all of these like kids playroom tiles, foam tiles that are like puzzle pieces that you put together for kids to play on. And I've made like a huge pathway through the house for Tizzy so she can walk on these foam tiles and get better traction so she can stay on her feet. But even that is kind of starting to. She's just doesn't have the greatest ability to stay upright all the time. So I said, "What the hell? I'll get her one of these little pet wheelchair things. So she'll have two wheels in the back, and we'll see how she adjusts to it. It may be a whole new lease on life. Who knows? She may, if this was a bad story, I'd put the wheels on her and I'd say, "Oh, look, you can go outside now," and she'd like run into the street and get hit by a car or something. Which is how the whole problem started in the first place when she was like 8 months old, got hit by a car. And that's why she's never walked perfectly well. But I assure you that will not happen. But I'll report back next time on.
Yeah, we'll get the update and see how it went. And
if it goes well, I'll take a video so you can see how she scoots around.
Yeah, and then we'll see. I'll report on whether or not Emily goes to the bathroom on my bed while I'm in Los Angeles.
which is she's sending you a message, obviously.
Yes, but if Brendan can manage to pill her with her anti-anxiety drugs, it'll be okay. But if he can't pill her, I have nice clean sheets set aside just in case.
It's too bad I can't. I have a hell of a time pilling Tizzy, so I get everything in liquid form, so I can just put it in her food because she's a chow hound. So there's no question she'll devour it if it's in her food.
No, if I ever have to give Charlotte medication, it's a dart gun or nothing. So
Okay, very good. I'll have you come over and give the medication to Tizzy then, because I'm no good at it. All right,
Okay.
Anne, always a pleasure. Go back to work. Go back to work
Okay.
now.
I got to go back to work. Okay.
Okay,
See y'all in a couple
not for much
weeks.
longer. Day's almost over. Okay, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon.
We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.